Rein.
I feel like we hear this term thrown around all the freaking time. The most prominent example I can think of is, I guess, Devin Booker back in like 2017 or 2018. He was putting up 25 points a game, but because his teams were losing so badly, people used to say he put up empty stats. But now that his team is winning, we don't say that anymore. It's a weird, derogatory phrase that's used to belittle somebody's accomplishments. Personally, I don't think Booker ever put up empty stats, to be honest. But since his team is winning now, I guess they're not empty stats anymore? However, in this video, I want to take a look at 3 NBA players who are legitimately putting up empty stats. Sometimes it looks like they're just chucking up shots just for the hell of it. Or because their teams have no other options. Sometimes it doesn't even look like they want to win the game. Alright, how's it going, folks? My name's Andy, and let's get started.
Kelly Oubre ist auch wild.
Kelly Oubre. Oubre is a guy.
Ich habe den echt gemocht bei den Golden State Warriors, ne? Aber ja, mittlerweile, der war eigentlich so dafür gedacht, wo der ab und zu mal einen Dreier hitten, Digga, gut im Slashen und gute Defense. Aber anscheinend kommt er doch nicht mehr so.
If you haven't watched him in recent years, your only memory of him is probably back when he played for the Wizards. In his first few seasons in the league, he was considered a high-potential prospect with a lot of upside, and because he was super young and a role player, no one really criticized him. However, as the years went by and Oubre took on a bigger role in every subsequent team he's been on, fans have quickly realized this dude is not good. Despite him averaging 20 points a game for the Hornets, it might look good on paper, but he's gotta be the worst player in the NBA who's averaging 20 points a game. In fact, Oubre hasn't had a single season of his entire career where he was a net positive in plus-minus.
Laber doch nicht.
When he's on the floor, his team is worse. It's been like this all the time. It's been like this with every team he's been on. Besides his horrific efficiency, which dipped to a 52% true shooting percentage, roughly 5 below the league average for small forwards, Oubre also has one of the lowest basketball IQs I've ever seen. He's so tunnel-visioned, he barely ever passes, his court vision is non-existent. And his level of basketball sense is ridiculous.
Bruder, das ist ja fast, als wenn der 2K spielt.
Low. I feel like every time he touches the ball, he's gonna try to score. Oubre's 1.1 assists per game is laughably low, especially for a wing player. Not to mention, he has a whopping usage rate of 26.5%.
That's good.
That's like an all-star level usage rate. Oubre has the usage rate of an all-star, but obviously he doesn't have the skills of one. Perhaps I'm being a bit harsh. With LaMelo Ball's season-ending injury, this is a lost season for the Hornets.
Schade.
They've been so bad due to his absence, and the absence of Miles Bridges. With those two gone,
ja, aber Miles Bridges wird wahrscheinlich nicht mehr wiederkommen aus.
I guess Oubre was kind of forced into this role. Nobody else on the team can step up and shoot as much as he does. Nobody else has the confidence that he does. Terry Rozier
Niklas Claxton auf einmal out of nowhere.
falls into a similar boat as well, with the Hornets missing their previous 2 leading scorers.
Das weiß ich nicht, Digga. Scary Terry damals bei den Boston Celtics war auch wild. Also schon lange her, da glaube, da war Isaiah Thomas auch noch da. Also an sich fand ich immer nicht, dass er jemand war, der Empty Stats gebracht hat. Also Kelly Oubre verstehe ich auf jeden Fall, aber nicht.
He too took on a much bigger role. As a result, his efficiency suffered. Overall, the two of them are averaging the most empty 20 points per game of any duo in the league. Jalen Green. You might have
Über die Rockets habe ich in letzter Zeit sehr, sehr viel gehört, Digga. Und viele Leute sagen, das sieht aus wie ein G-League-Team.
Heard me talk about Jalen Green in a previous video I made about Alperen Şengün. In that video, I said that Green was putting up some great counting stats, but if you really watch him play, there's so many issues with this game. The truth is, Green, being their former second overall pick, he's expected to become a star. The Rockets want him to become a star. That's why they drafted him so high, and that's why they're giving him the green light, trying to force him to develop by giving him the biggest role on the team. He is a young player, only his second season in the NBA so far, but it doesn't excuse him from the fact that he hasn't improved at all since he came into the league. Green's usage rate of 28.4% is even higher than Nikola Jokic's usage of 27.1%.
What the fuck?
He's literally using up more possessions than the MVP. At a glance, you see his 21 points a game, you see his highlights, and they don't look that bad. Since few people outside of Houston have watched Rockets games this season, the general consensus is that Green has shown no signs of being a future face of the franchise. Among all players averaging at least 21 points a game, Green has the second lowest true shooting percentage, with 53.7% as of this video.
Wer ist der lowest, Digga? Ist das Kylie Oubre oder was?
There are a few reasons why Green has hit this sophomore slump, one of which is that defenders are focusing on him more.
In der ersten Season konnte er noch ein bisschen freier spielen, weil die Leute ihn nicht einschätzen konnten. Aber mittlerweile wissen sie, was er machen will und deswegen ist er einfacher zu verteidigen. Wie so ein 6'9 Rim Runner, Digga, ohne Speedboost. Weißt du, ich meine, du weißt im Endeffekt, was er machen will, wie zum Rim. Also brauchst du einfach nur Rim zu machen.
For example, in his rookie year, according to the NBA tracking dashboard, 21.2% of his shots were wide open, but this season, only 15.8% of them are. Not only that, but he's creating more off the dribble. Last season, 44% of his twos and 66% of his threes were assisted.
Wow.
This season, that has dropped to 34% and 58% respectively. So if you think about it, even though he's seeing more defenders every game and he's creating his own shots more often, his numbers aren't that bad. I mean, it's still well below average, but it's not all his fault either. The majority of his team is pretty damn bad. For example, the Rockets are the worst three-point shooting team in the league. Due to their poor shooting, they have a
Und das aus der Era rauskommt, wo James Harden da war und die das Team war mit den meisten Dreiern geshootet und auch am besten getroffen.
Lack of space. It makes it harder for Green to flourish when defenders can just sag off their man so easily. The team simply doesn't have really any other threats. In the future, as this team develops and his teammates improve, Green should get better as well. Right now though, the numbers he's
Die Moves sehen slick aus, ne? Aber wenn er am Ende den Ball nicht in den Korb bekommt, dann ist das alles umsonst.
putting up are
Ich hab einen Bonbon im Mund, ne? Nicht wundern.
quite empty and meaningless. He's just taking a lot of shots and forcing up so many bad ones. The Rockets have thrown him into the fire, but he's struggling to adapt. It's not just his shooting, Green also has tunnel vision a lot. He's sometimes doing too much with the ball, more than what he's currently capable of. Anthony Edwards, a good friend of Jalen, was asked about how to overcome these issues as a young player, to which he responded, quote, "Take easier shots.
Yeah,
Sometimes you gotta catch and shoot instead of taking a dribble step back, because I was the same way in my second year. But he's growing, just like me. I'm still learning. Him and I are similar in that aspect, taking harder shots because we know we can make them. But once he makes the game easier for himself, he's gonna be super good." Hopefully,
Ob super gut wird, weiß ich noch nicht, aber es waren wahrscheinlich die richtigen Worte von Anthony Davis.
Jalen will get it together
Anthony
in the
Davis,
next few
Anthony
years. Oh, the Rockets certainly need him to. Dylan Brooks. I mentioned earlier in the season
Das ist der Kollege, der auf dem Thumbnail
how
war.
much of a liability Dylan Brooks is. I mean, you can probably tell just by watching him. He's had his moments on defense, being one of their better perimeter defenders, but his offense is so putrid that it's not worth it. And over the course of the season, the Grizzlies noticed this too.
Ledershot.
Brooks started taking fewer and fewer shots and his role slowly diminished. But that's great for the team. From the beginning of the
Eigentlich schon.
season until
Ich glaube, er sollte so der Miles Bridges-Ersatz sein, Digga, aber dann haben sie gemerkt, ist doch nicht. Ne, so. Ich liebe Anthony Edwards, das ist ein guter Mann, ohne Spaß. Ich mag den auch sehr.
the end of December, Brooks took about 6
Ich habe erst gedacht, der geht so ein bisschen die Ja Morant Road, die Ja Morant jetzt gerade geht, so ein bisschen auf Gangster machen, dies und das und so. Aber doch, ich mag den sehr.
15 shots a game. Since the start of January until now, he's averaging fewer than 12 shots a game.
Dass sie das in
His
der Season auch schon
efficiency has
erkannt haben.
gotten even worse compared to the start of the year, now hovering around a 48% true shooting percentage.
Oder!
For comparison, the average small forward this season has a true shooting percentage of 57%.
Das ist
Still,
das,
even
Alter.
with his lesser role,
Digga, in anderen Teams wäre das unplayable.
Brooks is still averaging the third most shots per game on this team, despite his efficiency
Oder.
being massively lower than anyone else in the starting lineup.
Alter. Warum lässt Jerry Jackson nicht noch mehr Shots
Brooks
nehmen?
is shooting like 28% from mid-range and
Ja gut, die brauchen sowieso bald eine neue Option ohne Ja Morant.
36% in the paint, outside the restricted zone. Those are just horrendous numbers, and I want to say it's due to poor shot selection, but even when he's relatively open, he still struggles to hit those shots. Offensively, he's on like Josh Smith levels of production when he was in Detroit. He's always actively hurting his team on offense.
Was war das für eine Shot Selection?
Levels of
Digga, sind nur
production
2
when he
Sekunden auf
was
der
in
Uhr oder
Detroit.
was?
He's
Was ist
always
das denn?
actively hurting his
Digga, dreifach geblockt.
team on offense.
Wann kommt's morgen live? Morgen. Oh. Ja, morgen wahrscheinlich auch ein bisschen früher. Morgen wahrscheinlich auch so 14, 15 Uhr.
It's even worse when you consider that the Grizzlies are actually trying to contend. In the playoffs last year, Brooks was such a huge detriment to the team, not only with his bad shots but also with his fouls. This time, it's gonna be interesting to see what the Grizzlies do with him.
Ja,
if he's
Mann.
holding them back too much, if he's performing too poorly, a couple of DNPs could be on his way.
Nur mal ganz kurz, ne? Golden State Warriors sind gerade auf dem 5. Platz in den Rankings. Playoffs sind wieder da, Digga. Die Bulls immer noch auf dem 11., ne? Vielleicht Play-In-Turnier, maybe. Aber Golden State auf jeden Fall in den Playoffs, Digga. Das wird die Titelverteidigung. Mashallah, Bruder. Ich denke mal dann, ne? 14, 15 Uhr. Kannst du gut rechnen, Digga. Vielleicht hast du ja Glück und wenn du von der Schule kommst, bin ich schon live.
Anyway, that's all, folks. Those were 3 of the most empty stat players in the league. Basically, their amount of usage, the amount of shots they take, they do not benefit their teams, and in most cases, they hurt them. Let me know in the comments if you can think of any other players who fall into this category.
Hat er vollkommen recht, Digga. Dylan Brooks würde ich als Most Empty Stat Player da einsortieren. Jalen Green genauso, wirklich sehr gut getroffen. Aber Kelly Oubre, Bruder, vielleicht, weiß nicht, er ist wahrscheinlich auch in den Team, wo die ihn einfach auch als offensive Kraft brauchen. Aber ich glaube, eher defensiv ist für ihn so das Ding, ne? Wo er weniger Scheiße bauen kann.